You have been trying to be the wrong kind of chosen one. Sit with that, because it explains more about the last 10 years of your life than anything else you'll hear today. Everything you were ever taught about being set apart came packaged as one template. Bold, loud, certain, standing in front of a crowd with a microphone and a word from God, and you have spent years measuring yourself against that one picture, coming up short, and concluding that either the calling was never real or you failed it somewhere along the way. Neither one is true. There are nine distinct types of chosen ones, and I'm going to name every one of them today. 9 different ways God builds a person He intends to use. 9 different assignments, 9 different costs, 9 different kinds of loneliness. And the reason your life has felt like a series of near misses is that you have been running a race in shoes that were made for somebody else's feet. Don't try to be all 9. You're not. Most people recognize themselves strongly in one and faintly in a second. And that second one is usually what God is developing in you right now, in the season you're calling a delay. Pay attention to your body while I describe them. You will feel one of these land in your chest before your mind catches up. That is not imagination. That's recognition. And recognition is how the Spirit has always spoken to people carrying something they couldn't yet name. Some of these are going to sound like weaknesses. One of them is going to sound like a personality flaw your mother has been correcting since you were 6 years old. Keep listening anyway, because the thing about the way heaven builds people is that it almost never looks like a gift while you're inside of it. It looks like a problem. It looks like too much. It looks like something you should apologize for. Let's start with the first one. The first type is the watchman. And the watchman is the person who knows before anyone else knows. Not in a mystical, crystal ball way. It's quieter than that, and more uncomfortable. You walk into a house and something in you says, "This marriage is over," and you say nothing. And 18 months later, you get the phone call. You sit in a meeting where everyone is celebrating the numbers, and there's a weight on your sternum you cannot explain. And 4 months later, the layoffs come. You get a burden about a person, and 3 days later they call you. The watchman lives in the gap between what they see and when everyone else sees it. And that gap is the loneliest real estate in the kingdom of God. Think about Noah for a second. We tell that story to children with animals in a boat, and we skip the part that actually matters. God told a man to build something enormous, in public, on dry ground, under a clear blue sky, for years, not weeks. Years, his neighbors watched him haul lumber and made jokes. Every day that man woke up and there was not one cloud on the horizon to confirm what he had been told. Nothing agreed with him. Not the weather, not the culture, not one person outside his own household. That's the watchman's assignment. You act on information no one around you has been given yet. And people don't call you a prophet during that stretch, they call you negative. They call you paranoid. I know a woman in a subdivision outside Nashville who told her husband to stop the addition on the house. And she couldn't tell him why, and he was furious with her for 2 months. Then his company restructured and he understood. She wasn't being difficult. She was being warned. If you're a watchman, hear this. Your job is not to convince people. Noah never once talked the crowd into the ark. His job was obedience and construction, not persuasion. You have exhausted yourself trying to make people see it early, and that exhaustion is not spiritual, it's you doing a job God never assigned. Build, prepare, say it once, plainly, to the person who is supposed to hear it. And then let time do the convincing, because time always does. The second type is the anchor. The anchor is the one everybody comes to. Your phone does not stop. You're the person people call at 11 at night when the marriage cracks open. You never advertised anything, never announced anything, and somehow you have a waiting list of people who need to tell you something. You say one sentence, and someone's whole direction changes. And when you're honest, you're tired, and a little confused about why this became your life. Because nobody appointed you to it. Deborah sat under a palm tree between Ramah and Bethel, and the entire nation of Israel came up to her for judgment. She didn't go to them. She sat, and the weight of God on her life made her a destination. And when the moment came for war, the commander of the army, a man named Barak, told her flat out, "If you don't go with me, I'm not going." He had the sword, she had the seat, and he knew which one the outcome depended on. That's you, if you're an anchor. People will not move without you in the room. Your presence stabilizes things. You've noticed that people wait to see your face before they decide how to feel. That is not charisma. That's a governmental grace on your life. And it is one of the heaviest ones to carry, because the anchor almost never gets anchored by anybody else. I want to name the specific pain of this type, because nobody does. The anchor has no anchor. You hold the family together at the funeral, and then you drive home alone, and nobody checks on you for a week. You counsel 4 people through their crisis, and when yours comes, the phone is quiet, and the temptation is bitterness, a low-grade resentment that says, "I pour out, and nobody pours in." Don't spiritualize that away. Say it to God in plain words. Deborah's grace held a nation, but she still needed the Lord to hold her. The seat under the palm tree was not a throne. It was a post. And every soldier at a post needs relief. The third type is the kept one. This is the type that hurts to talk about. Because the kept one is the person whose promise came early and whose door came late. You knew at 19. You knew at 12. You knew in a bedroom with a Bible open on the bed, and something in you burned so hot you couldn't sleep. Then life put you in a job that uses about 11% of what's in you, and you've been faithful in it for 9 years, or 19. And every year the distance between what you were shown and what you're living gets wider. And the question that visits you at 2 in the morning is the cruelest one there is. Did I make that up? Caleb was 40 years old when he stood at the edge of the promised land and said, "We can take this." He was right. He was outvoted, and because of a decision that was not his, he spent the next 45 years walking circles in a desert with people who did not believe what he believed. Not 45 years of failure of waiting inside somebody else's unbelief. And here's the line that undoes me every time. At 85 years old, he walks up to Joshua and says, "I am as strong this day as I was the day Moses sent me. Give me this mountain." Not a valley, not a settlement. The mountain with giants on it, the exact assignment he'd been shown almost half a century earlier. Still intact, still his, and he had the strength to take it. The desert did not consume Caleb. It preserved him. If you're a kept one, that is the reframe you need. You have been reading your delay as evidence of disqualification. It's the opposite. God does not keep something in storage that he intends to discard. There's a man in Tulsa who ran a parts counter for 19 years while carrying a call to teach. And he taught anyway 3 men, in a break room, on Wednesdays, out of a marked-up study Bible. He's now doing at 58, what he saw at 22. Those years were not stolen. They were the training that made the 58-year-old version survivable. Wait well. Waiting badly wastes the years. Waiting well converts them. The fourth type is the one who came back. Some of you flinched when I said this is one of the 9, because you never once thought your history could be the credential. You've thought of it as the thing that keeps you in the back row. You got saved out of a wreck. The wreck has your fingerprints on it, and there's a version of that story you have never told out loud to anyone at that church. The prodigal son is the type. And notice what actually happened, because we sentimentalize that story and lose the point. That boy rehearsed a speech in a pig field. He had it memorized. Make me like one of your hired servants, a demotion, a permanent second-class arrangement, because that's what he believed he had earned. He came home with a reduced identity already prepared. The father never let him finish it. The robe, the ring. The ring is the part people skip. A ring was authority. It was the household seal. The father did not restore him to the porch. He restored him to the family business with signing power on the very day he came home smelling like a pig pen. If that's your type, God is not going to use you in spite of your history. He's going to use you through it. The people he's sending you to would never believe a spotless person. They need you, the one who went out and came back and can describe the exact texture of the far country and the exact moment the turn happened. I know a man in Fort Wayne who runs a recovery group in a church basement on Tuesday nights. And the only reason those 11 men stay in that room is that he has been where they are, and he doesn't flinch when they describe it. Your testimony is not your shame, it's your assignment. But it only becomes an assignment when you stop editing it. The fifth type is the useful one, and this is the type the world wrote off. There's a man in the New Testament almost nobody preaches about. His name was Onesimus, and it literally meant useful, a brutal thing to be named when you are somebody's property. He ran, he stole most likely, and ended up in Rome, which is where a runaway went to disappear. And in that enormous city he crossed paths with an old man under house arrest named Paul, and everything changed. Paul writes a letter about him and plays on his name. He was useless to you, but now he is useful to you and to me. And then he does something that should stop you cold. He sends him back. Onesimus carried the letter about himself, in his own hands, back to the man he had run from, holding the document that would decide whether he lived or died. That's the useful one. You have a gap in your story. A record, a firing, a season you don't put on the resume, a family that has one version of you frozen in amber from the worst year of your life, and you have accepted their label so thoroughly that you introduce yourself with it in your own head every morning. But God has never once been limited by other people's filing system. The name didn't change. The nature under the name did. And the assignment for this type is almost always the same. You get sent back. Back to the family. Back to the city. Not as the person who left, but as living evidence that the label was never permanent. If you're this type, the hardest thing you will ever do is walk back into a room where everyone remembers who you were. Do it anyway. That walk is the ministry. The sixth type is the one who must be undone. This one is for the competent. You're the person the family calls when there's a problem to solve. And you solve it, and you like solving it. And somewhere in the middle of that, a quiet belief formed in you. If I work hard enough and think clearly enough, I can handle it. And then God allows something into your life that will not respond to competence. Naaman was a commander, decorated, respected, the man who won the war, and he had leprosy under the armor. So he did what capable men do. He assembled resources. Letters from a king, silver, gold, changes of clothing. He pulled his chariots up in front of a prophet's house with an entourage, ready to purchase his healing at a fair price. The prophet didn't even come outside. Sent a servant to the door with a message. Go dip in the Jordan 7 times. And Naaman was furious. Not confused furious. He had a picture of how the deliverance should look. and the actual instruction was beneath him. The Jordan was muddy. The rivers back home in Damascus were clearer. He'd rather wash in a better river than obey in a worse one. It was his own servants who saved him. They said, if he'd asked you to do some great thing, you'd have done it. Why not this small thing? If this is your type, the assignment is going to feel like a demotion. You will be asked to do something small, repetitive, unimpressive, and completely disconnected from your credentials. Serve in the parking lot. Sit under someone less educated than you. Ask for help from a person you've been quietly looking down on, and there is going to be a moment where you're standing in that muddy water on the fourth dip. Nothing changed, and everything in you says, this is ridiculous. Stay in the water. The pride comes off before the leprosy does. That's the whole design. Let me tell you something personal before we go on, because I think you've earned it after sitting with me this long. For a long stretch of my life, I was the sixth type, and I'd have argued with you about it. I could organize anything. I could fix anything for anybody. And I built a version of faith that was really just competence with worship music playing underneath it. Then a season came where nothing I knew how to do worked. I prayed the way I'd been taught, and the ceiling stayed where it was, and I sat on the edge of a bed at 3 in the morning, with nothing left in my hands. And what I found in that stretch is what I've spent every year since trying to hand to other people. There is a structure to how God awakens a person. It is not random. There are stages, and there are keys. And when I finally saw them laid out in order, I stopped fighting my own life. I understood why the delay had been necessary. I understood which type I actually was, instead of failing at being a type I was never made to be. The calling is wide. The instructions reach only a few. If there is a burning in your spirit right now, do not minimize it. That is the sign. The secret protocol delivers the 7 keys God reserved for those who are ready to unlock what was sealed inside them before birth. The full audiobook is included to absorb in depth, in your own time, in the presence of God. And the Awakening Map, the bonus guide that reveals the 5 stages of spiritual awakening and positions you with precision at the exact point of your journey today. Link pinned in the first comment. For a limited time, only because not every door stays open forever. Now let's go to the 7th, because this one is quiet and it's easy to miss. The 7th type is the silent petitioner. This is the person who prays what they cannot say to anyone. Hannah went up to Shiloh year after year, carrying a grief with no language for it. And there's a detail there that tells you everything about this type. When she finally broke, she was praying in the house of God, and her lips were moving, but no sound was coming out. The priest, the professional, the man whose entire job was recognizing what God was doing, looked at her and concluded she was drunk. He rebuked her. The one person in the building qualified to identify a genuine encounter got it exactly backwards. That is the signature wound of this type. You are misread by the people who should read you best. Your intensity gets diagnosed as instability. Your grief gets treated as drama. You have prayed things in a parking lot that you have never said to your spouse, your pastor, or your closest friend, not out of secrecy, but because there are no words for it that wouldn't come out sounding smaller than it is. And God answered the prayer nobody could hear. Not the eloquent one, not the public one, the one with no volume at all. And the child that came out of that silent prayer became one of the most significant prophets in Israel's entire history, a boy who heard God's voice in the night, in a generation where the word of the Lord was rare. Silent prayer is not weak prayer. Sometimes it is the most costly prayer there is. If you're this type, Stop apologizing for the fact that your deepest prayer life has no witnesses. It was never supposed to have witnesses. It was supposed to have an answerer. The eighth type is the one who climbs. The climber is the person who will do the undignified thing to get to God. Zacchaeus was rich, hated, and short, and he ran ahead of a crowd and climbed a tree in a robe like a child, in the middle of his own city, in front of the people he had been collecting taxes from for years. Understand the humiliation of that. He chose to look absurd rather than miss the moment. And Jesus stopped under that specific tree, looked up, and used his name. If you're this type, you've done a version of that climb. You've driven 40 minutes to a service on a work night. You've sat in the back row of a church where you didn't know a soul because something in you said go. You've listened to sermons in a work truck at lunch with the windows up so nobody could hear. You've been the only one in your household who cared, and you did it anyway. And it cost you something socially every single time. Here's the thing about the climber that other types don't understand. You're not desperate because you're weak. You're desperate because you've had a taste. And a taste ruins you for the substitute. Everyone around you seems to be able to take God or leave him. And you look at that and you cannot comprehend it. And the gap makes you feel like something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. Hunger is not a malfunction. And every single time somebody in Scripture pushed through a crowd, made a scene, tore open a roof, or climbed a tree, heaven stopped and dealt with them personally. God is not embarrassed by your intensity. He arranges his route to pass by your tree. And the ninth type is the one who burns. This is the person who feels everything. You cry at things other people walk past. You absorb the temperature of a room the second you enter it. You carry other people's pain home with you, and it sits on you for days, and you cannot put it down by deciding to. And somewhere along the way somebody told you that you're too sensitive, and you believed them. And you've spent your adult life building a container to keep the overflow from showing. Jeremiah tried to quit. He said it plainly, I will not make mention of him, nor speak any more in his name. He was done. And then he said the line that describes this entire type forever. But his word was in my heart, like a burning fire shut up in my bones, and I was weary with forbearing, and I could not stay. He couldn't hold it in. Holding it in cost more than releasing it. And notice how God introduced himself at the beginning. Before I formed you in the belly, I knew you. And before you came out of the womb, I sanctified you. He didn't say, once you are qualified. He said before. This type is almost always the type that was marked earliest and understood latest. If you burn, your assignment is not to become calmer. It's to aim the fire, untended. That intensity turns inward and becomes anxiety, or outward and becomes anger. Aimed, it becomes intercession. It becomes the person who cannot rest until something is done. Every real move of God in history started in the chest of somebody who couldn't sleep. So that's the 9. The watchman, the anchor, the kept one, the one who came back, the useful one, the one who must be undone, the silent petitioner, the climber, and the one who burns. Now hear the last part, because this changes how you live tomorrow morning. God spread these out on purpose. He didn't build 9 copies of the same person, because 9 copies of the same person cannot build anything. The watchman sees it coming, and the anchor holds people steady while it arrives. The one who came back reaches the person the kept one never could. You were never meant to be the complete picture by yourself. You were meant to be one piece of it, and the ache you feel for the pieces you're missing is not a deficiency. It's the pull toward the people you're supposed to be standing next to. Which means 2 things. Stop envying the type God did not give you, That comparison has stolen more from you than any enemy ever has. And start looking for the other types around you, because your assignment almost certainly requires somebody whose grace you do not have. And one more thing. Every one of these 9 has a cost attached to it. And the cost is not a sign that you took a wrong turn. The watchman pays in loneliness. The anchor pays in exhaustion. The kept one pays in time. The one who came back pays in reputation. The useful one pays in humiliation. The undone one pays in pride. The silent petitioner pays in being misunderstood. The climber pays in dignity. The burner pays in sleep. If you have been paying, it's because you have been carrying something real. Nobody pays for a calling that doesn't exist. Here's what I want from you before you go. And I want you to actually do it. In the comments, put the number of your type 1 through 9, and then tell me the one thing that type has cost you personally. Not in general. Specifically, if you're a 3, tell me how many years you've been waiting. If you're a 2, tell me the last time somebody checked on you. If you're a 9, tell me the thing you cried about last week that everybody else walked right past. I read these, and there are people who are going to scroll through and find their own number in your words and finally understand what has been happening to them their entire life. Because the truth is, the thing you've been asking God to remove from you is probably the exact thing He built you around. And one of these days you're going to stop praying for a different set of shoes and start walking in the ones you were given, and the ground you cover is going to surprise everybody, starting with you. This channel is created without ads and without platform income. If these messages have touched your heart, strengthened your faith, or helped you during a difficult moment, and you'd like to support this work, you can use the QR code on your screen or the contribution link in the pinned comment. Thank you for walking this path with us.